Okay, this is a video by Steve Shives entitled 5 Toxic Things About YouTube Atheism, and I like to point out how he disabled comments. And for the record, when you not disabled comments, disabled ratings. For the record, when you disable ratings, like, people can still like your videos and put them in, like, a like playlist, but they can't show they disliked it, basically. So it's basically only good publicity thing.
Yes, I'm a YouTube atheist, but try not to hold that against me.
I hold everything against everybody, Steve.
Okay? Here are 5 toxic things about YouTube atheism. Number 1, it has a sexism problem. Many of the most popular
Say what you will about Steve, but the pictures he puts in the background are usually somewhat funny.
atheists on YouTube are brazen anti-feminist.
So, disagreeing with a feminist means you're sexist. How does that, sexism implies you disagree with her because she's a woman. What if I disagree with her because I don't like her points?
Who insult and belittle women
Does that prove any of them wrong?
And men, but mostly women, who speak out against gender inequality. They also proudly deny the existences of things like the wage gap, rape culture,
and God.
Gender imbalances in political and cultural representation.
Maybe there'd be more women in politics if, before Hillary Clinton, the last serious presidential candidate wasn't Sarah Palin. Yeah, I'm just snowballing here. That might have actually been sexist. I'm sorry about that.
And other problems that are widely accepted and seriously discussed outside of the misogynist circle jerk that is the atheist community on YouTube.
Doesn't the same thing go for religion, though? Like, you're like, and these things are considered facts. Yeah, well, so what's God considered a fact? In several circles, God is still considered a fact. Give me your point.
But lest you think that sexism is the only form of bigotry running rampant in atheist spaces on YouTube, let me assure you, number 2, it also has a racism problem. And it's the best kind of racism, too, the willfully oblivious kind. One of the most subscribed to atheists on YouTube.
He means the amazing atheist, by the way.
Recently made videos espousing his views. For example, Black Americans who speak out against racial injustice are part of a victim cult.
No, TJ said that he felt black culture was a victim cult in general. And even then, being part of a victim cult doesn't make you wrong.
Or the displacement of black folks by gentrification isn't a problem because it results in nicer neighborhoods with fewer thugs hanging around.
Okay, I actually do agree. That was kind of stupid of TJ to say. At the same time, though, he made it clear that was his personal beliefs instead of just an absolute fact. And one thing that bothers me, though, gentrification is not it's all the black people only getting gentrified. No, it's the poor people getting gentrified, okay? Is gentrified a word? Gentrified. That actually does sound gangster. Oh my god, you only think it's for black people because it sounds so gangster. You're racist, Steve.
Or, my personal favorite, the true outrage isn't racism, but people calling people like him racists.
No, all TJ did was say in a polite and civil manner, I don't feel this is racist.
Because why would anyone think that the white guy who makes a virtue out of publicly not giving a shit about black people...
So, disagreeing with black people equals not caring about black people. I guess you just don't care about atheists then, Steve. You don't care if, some guy goes around and kills all atheists because, you disagree with them.
Was a racist! It's ridiculous! Hang on, I'm not done. Number 3.
I wish you were.
It has a religious bigotry problem, too. The ugliest religious bigotry in the YouTube atheist community is, of course, directed at Muslims who are...
That's because Islam is the most violent religion. Most people who are Muslims, I'm not gonna say most, but it's definitely, the most elite religion. I'm just saying, outside of, one city, I want to say oligarchy, but I know that's not the term. Every place that's ran by a religion is Muslim.
commonly stereotyped as potential terrorists and whose religion
Isn't everyone really a potential terrorist when you get down to... Oh god, that came out a lot better in my head.
is viewed as inherently worse and more dangerous than any other. But there's still plenty of judgmental condescension left over for Christians and religious folks in general.
Also, Steve, did ever consider the reason, atheists, including myself, talk about, Christianity and Islam most commonly is because they're the two main religions?
Many YouTube atheists will still cite belief in God as evidence of mental illness.
No, they won't. And if they were, it's an obvious joke.
Thus denigrating religious folks and the mentally ill at the same time. Not that they give a shit. Pushing the religious into the mud and then pointing and laughing at them is one of YouTube atheism's most treasured pastimes. That might be why. Number 4, it's addicted to drama and conflict. Some of the most watched atheists on YouTube today began making videos in response to creationists. Some of them conducted themselves with class, dignity, and intellectual honesty, striving to have civil conversations with often exasperating adversaries. But even back in those less fractious early years, before the community's pervasive racism and sexism,
Hearing the word fractious just makes me think that, Steve has a subscription to thesaurus.com. Now, is that just me? It might be just me.
Surfaced, the most popular personalities were those who gleefully bullied their targets.
Bullying implies that they were silencing. No one, TJ has never silenced anyone. They've said, he said, even on Drunken Peasants, all of them have said, you're wrong on this, but he've never said, they never bullied them. Bullying would imply, they flagged something, like what you've done. Oh, crap.
Small wonder, then, that once the creationist opponents had been exhausted, the bullies turned and found new enemies within atheist circles. And it turns out that most people who enjoyed watching obnoxious white dudes attack Christians were just as entertained by watching those same obnoxious white dudes attack women, Muslims, and racial justice activists.
Okay, he does have a point there in a sort of... Everyone knows that type of way, but okay.
That the YouTube atheist community is now dominated by professional trolls who
then don't give them attention.
Manufacture conflict in order to generate content and views would be bad enough if the damage they caused was confined to YouTube. But it's not. Number 5, it reflects poorly on the rest of the atheist movement. Ever wonder why with...
Oh my god, Steve, this guy thinks that, all lives matter. That means he wants to kill everybody. Because, when someone says, all lives matter, that means they're a serial killer. Because, all lives matter to serial killers. That's just a fact. So, wait, Black Lives Matter kills black people then, I guess? I don't know.
The few notable exceptions, YouTube atheists are not invited to address secular conferences or represent atheist organizations to the public. If you're lucky, your first contact with atheism on YouTube came in the form of one of the more responsible voices, like Aaron Ra, Seth Andrews, or Matt Dillahunty. But unfortunately, it's much more likely that before you got to them, you discovered one of the people I'm talking about in this video, one of the proudly...
Well, actually, you never said who you were talking about. I don't know who to avoid, Steve. But even then, what's wrong with looking at these people? What's wrong with keeping open mind? What's wrong with liking? What's wrong with being like, okay, I agree with you on this, so I'll give you that. But I don't agree with you on this. Now, what's wrong with that, Steve?
Offensive, cluelessly bigoted assholes who might as well be caricatures of atheists drawn by alarmist evangelists. We atheists like to pat ourselves on the back for being more reasonable than the religious folks, but I don't think that's true. And judging by the most visible representatives of our movement on YouTube,
it's not a movement, Steve.
The most unreasonable belief shared by many of us might be the belief that we're the reasonable ones. The hardest part is picking only 5. Catch you next time. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. And
I can't exactly, publicly like it because you disabled the raid. Oh wait, yes I can.
also, please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a
Or I could just look at seriously, people, just say the links in the description. Don't say, you know, um, here's my address. It's www.patreon.com/uc.com .net.gov.
patron. Thanks for watching.
Actually, let's look at some of the descriptions. 5 ways atheists argue that cause that are not helping the amazing atheist racism. The amazing atheist denies he's racist by being racist. Stale-bred atheist. Preaching to the choir to cultivate atheism. The atheist communities do a better job at welcoming people of color. Black people aren't people of color. Black is the lack of color. I know I'm nitpicking. Something is rotten in atheism, the amazing atheist, and secular racism. This is obviously just talking about the amazing atheist. Like, I don't know, maybe some of this is talking about some other people like Sargon or Thunderfoot. But most of this is obviously just naming the amazing atheist. Why don't you just say, hey, here are 5 toxic things about the amazing atheist? Or the amazing atheist theory right about you? You're worried about giving him publicity because then, people will think thoughts you don't want them to think. Oh God, this is just awful. Anyway, I'm Ephrom Joe, and I don't know what I'm doing now. Just rambling.